This is my favorite cake. Today we're going to be making some Japanese style cheesecake, and after a fan request and my brother's birthday, it seemed like a good time to do it. So if you haven't had this before, this cake is very light and airy due to the fact that it's more egg than flour, and it gets its lift from actually the whipped egg whites. With a subtle flavor that isn't too sweet, after eating it you won't go into a food coma. It's definitely an involved process, but this is the perfect cake for a special occasion. So today let's make some Japanese souffle cheesecake. To get started, we're going to need to do some prep. So the first thing that we're going to need is some cake flour, and since I don't have cake flour and it's not always the easiest thing to find, let's just quickly make some. For this recipe, we're going to need about 28 grams of regular all-purpose flour and 7 grams of cornstarch. Give this a good mix, and it'll essentially dilute the protein content of the flour, making it less bready and more cakey. The next thing that we're going to need is to carefully separate the yolk from the whites of 6 eggs. Now be very careful not to get any yolk into the whites. This will prevent it from actually whipping up later when we need to. So once we've done this hard work of separating the two into separate bowls, we can move on to the next step of the prep. The next piece of prep that we need to do is cut some parchment paper to line the inside of a springform pan. We're going to cut each piece to match our springform pan, as you can see that I'm doing here. Also, as you can see here, I never really passed the arts and crafts portion of kindergarten, so I apologize to anybody who knows how to actually properly cut and is pulling their hair out watching me doing this. Once all the pieces are cut out, go ahead and coat them with butter. You can either do this on the parchment paper or on the pan itself, and then stick the butter side to the springform pan. And actually, while we're watching this, we can see the problem in the video. The recipe I'm going to be giving you is for a cake pan with a diameter of 8 inches or about 20 centimeters. The problem is here, I'm using a 6.5 inch pan, something I won't realize until later in this video when it's too late. Okay, now we can continue with the last piece of prep, which is to set your oven to 315 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 degrees Celsius. Now with the prep out of the way, it's actually time to start making the cake. So to start off, we're gonna need 4 ounces or about 115 grams of softened cream cheese and about 1/4 of a cup or 60 milliliters of room temperature milk. Beat it with a whisk a little and then add 4 tablespoons or 56 grams of softened butter and about 1/4 of a cup or 50 grams of sugar. Give this all a good mix, and it will be resistant to blending at first, but after a few minutes, the stuff will start to come together. Once it's smooth and you don't see any lumps, go ahead and add about a tablespoon of lemon juice and a little bit of lemon zest. Go ahead and mix everything up, and once it's all good and smooth, go ahead and begin to add our egg yolks in, giving this a good mix after each egg yolk. Once it's all kind of come together and smooth and yellow, go ahead and set this off to the side. We'll need it for later. Next is the fun part, which is whipping the egg whites. Feel free to use an electric beater here, but I'm gonna stick with my handy dandy whisk here. The idea is to whip the egg whites up, creating hundreds of thousands of tiny bubbles of air. When heated in the oven, these tiny bubbles will expand, lifting the cake with it. We'll keep doing this through different stages, and it will come to what's known as soft peaks, which kind of look like this. Once you get to this stage, add about 1/4 of a cup of sugar and a shake of cream of tartar. Now, cream of tartar here is used to stabilize the foam, allowing these tiny air bubbles to last a little bit longer before they collapse. Keep mixing until you can see the foam can stand on itself, something you can see like this. Also, you'll notice that it has a glossy sheen, meaning that the sugar that you've added has been mixed in and properly incorporated into the foam. And we have successfully made what is known as a meringue. Now we're gonna need to carefully mix this in with our egg yolk batter. And to do this, add about half of the meringue batter to the egg yolk batter. And don't mix it with a whisk. Doing so will collapse the air bubbles. Instead, we're gonna gently fold in the egg yolk mixture with the meringue. And you'll see that the egg yolk batter will lighten a little bit and become a little bit more foamy. Once it's entirely incorporated, go ahead and add the remaining meringue, being ever so careful, ensuring that you're mixing it up from the bottom up, making sure that you're getting all of those nooks and crannies of egg yolk batter that are kind of chilling on the bottom. We're gonna keep doing this until we have a uniform and light cake batter, and once we do, we can pour this directly into our lined springform pan. So here, I finally realized my mistake, and since I only realized at this point, and I had set up all the equipment to film, I just decided to roll with it. I ended up pouring the excess into some ramekins, so in the end it all worked out. Once we have the batter poured into our lined springform pan, we're going to want to create what's known as a bain-marie, which is basically a water bath for a springform pan. This will help ensure that we get an even heat of the souffle, as well as provide moisture in the oven during the bake. So pour some warm water into a casserole dish and then place the springform pan into it. It doesn't hurt to do this beforehand in kind of a dry run to make sure that you have dishes that are the right size. Once we've made our bain-marie, it's time to place the entire thing into the oven. We're going to let this thing bake at 315 for about 1 hour and 10 minutes, and really don't try to open this unless you suspect that there's something wrong, because what we want is an even low heat over a long period of time. Opening the oven will change the temperature rapidly inside of the oven and could potentially ruin the cake. After about 1 hour and 10 minutes, turn the heat up to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or about 176 degrees Celsius for about 10 minutes. This will help brown the top of the cake. And after our 10 minutes of browning, go ahead and turn the oven off, but don't open the door just yet. What we want to do is cool this cake gradually. So what we're gonna need to do is crack the door open slightly. And for me, I'm using a wooden rolling pin here, or just anything that you want to use to keep the door slightly ajar. This will allow the temperature to slowly rise and for the cake to cool gradually. We're gonna let this thing slowly cool for an hour, and then we're gonna come back to it. And so after about an hour, we can pull this bad boy out of the oven and serve. And as you can see, this thing looks awesome. The texture of the cake is so unique. It's soft and fluffy. It has a very light and airy taste. And it is an especially great cake. I know it seems like a lot of work, but after a few times of making this, you'll have a super special cake up your sleeve that you can pull out for special occasions. Now lastly, for those keeping score at home, you may be asking yourself, why would I slice into my brother's birthday cake before giving it to him? Shh, he'll never know. Well, thank you for watching. I have some basic merch now over at Teespring, so I'll have some links for that down below, and go ahead and check it out if you want a shirt or a mug. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching. And lastly, if you're looking for another video to watch, check out my friend Cooking with Q, who's done a video on chocolate gelato, which would go really well with this cheesecake. All right, bye.